Terrific. Thanks, Paige. Welcome, everybody. Paige has asked me to give a webinar on the Terrain Navigator Pro measuring tools and how it can be used across platform on the TNP mobile app using on your Android or iPhone. Also using it on our website, the web portal, as well as on, of course, the TNP desktop, which is the one that everyone is probably most familiar with. And then how results could be synchronized between the three different platforms. As Paige mentioned, please do keep your microphones muted during the presentation. If there are any questions, feel free to type them into the chat session. We'll pause periodically to take questions, and then feel free to open it up to a general discussion at the end. Let's see. So without any other things, let's get started. So we're going to start with the Terrain Navigator Pro on the phone. And here we are with Terrain Navigator Pro on, this is an Android device. And we're looking at lovely Montpelier, Vermont, and on a traditional topo map. The measurement tool in Terrain Navigator Pro Mobile is pretty basic, and it can be accessed by this this button right here. And I'm going to grab it, and it brings up a simple ruler. And so now that ruler can be used to do a measurement between 2 points. I'm just clicking and dragging, and you'll see that the ruler distance is displayed right there. Right now it is set to be in kilometers. If I wanted that to be in English units, I can go to my settings. So I went to the menu button, I choose settings, and Unix system right there. I'm going to choose English units. Go back, and now it's doing it in feet. So if I wanted the length of this road right here, I just click and drag, and then move this one. And it's 2,912 feet. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The other thing that you could potentially do with, might be useful if you had two markers, let's say you've created, either you've created them or you've made on the GPS. Let's make a marker right here at this intersection, for example. I'm just going to click and drag. I'm going to continue the project that I've been using. I'm going to make a marker. And we'll call it marker 1 because, well, why not? Let's call it intersection 1. Save that. And let's make another marker right here. We're just going to, again, make the marker by tapping and holding. We'll call this one intersection 2. Save that. And now, if you wanted to know the distance between the two, you use your ruler tool. And there it is, 2,500 feet or so. That is pretty much it to measuring things on the mobile app. It is it's meant to be a tool that you can use quickly in the field. Not really super advanced, but something that you can make a quick measurement. I was out in the field the other day myself. I was looking at a right-of-way, and I needed to know how long the right-of-way was, and I was able to get a quick estimate just being out in the field, and then just doing exactly that using the distance tool. And then I was able to text my colleague to say, hey, the right-of-way is so long, and it's got these characteristics. So that is the mobile app and measuring. At this point, I'll stop, take questions on using the mobile app for measuring. All right, go ahead and use the chat feature in the upper right-hand corner of your presentation window. If people think of questions later, we will certainly take that. Does anything on the page asks, does anything on the phone sync back? At this point, again, let me clarify. There's two things that we're showing here. We have a distance tool. That distance tool is a fleeting tool. It is a quick make a measurement between 2 points. This tool does not synchronize. It is not something that is a permanent annotation on the map. It is simply a tool to making a measurement. It's the equivalent of taking out a ruler on a paper map and measuring between 2 points and not drawing anything. These markers, however, I drew on the map. That would be the equivalent of taking taking a magic marker or a Sharpie and drawing on the map. So those will be permanent. I see we also have two questions. One is three questions now. Great. How do you remove a marker? Markers are, like I say, there's just like any other layer in on the mobile app. You can click on it, tap on it, and if I wanted to delete it, I could delete it, and it will ask it that I will, and boom, now I don't have intersection 2 anymore. Do that again. Okay. Now, there was another question. Is the app able to calculate area or acreage? Not at this time. Acreage is not something that this particular distance tool does. However, you can do it on the website, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Chip asks, demonstrate the use of the settings with the measurement tool again, please. Okay, so again, I'll just turn the measurement tool on and off. It's just up here at the top. And then if I want to switch between English units and metric units, and there's no finer control than that. It's just English or metric. I go to the main menu. I choose settings. And the unit system here says use English units. I can click that, and I can switch between English and metric. I'll choose it back to metric, back out, and now it's in kilometers, and if it was shorter, it would switch to meters. We have a person who's having a technical issue who cannot hear any voice and cannot join by phone. What to do? I assume everybody can hear me. So since I've been taking questions, Paige, if you want to answer that person by text, just to let him know that it's something on his end, that would be appreciated. And I'll continue with the presentation. The next thing I wanted to show is the website. So leading into that, so let's get my phone out of the way, and we'll bring over a web page. This is, as you know, you can log into terrainnavigator.com and access any projects. That's a great feature for people who are using out on the road, don't have their laptop with them and need to access a project, or maybe they're a client or what have you, and they want to access a particular project. You can log in right in at terrainnavigator.com, put in your Terrain Navigator Pro username and password, and you'll be brought in here. And we're going to just go to projects. And I'm going to go to the measurement webinar project, which is the one I've been working on. And here we are back in the preview screen, since there's just one marker now in this project. I'll zoom out just to show you that we are still in Montpelier, Vermont. There's the marker at the intersection 1 that I had created earlier. The mobile app, excuse me, the web app has two kind of modes, if you will. One is a preview mode where you can kind of see what the project is and so forth and get information about the project. And then there's the edit mode or activation mode where you've activated the project, you're editing it and that sort of thing. So without getting too detailed into this, and I think we've covered this pretty well in other webinars, here is where you can also set your unit system, your position format, that sort of stuff is all here on the preview screen. You can also get edit your particular information about projects, about that project. Give it the name, summary, that sort of stuff. I'm going to go back out of that. And then more importantly is how you want to edit the project. So I'm going to go ahead and click here where it says activate/edit the project. It's just like going on the Terrain Navigator Pro on the desktop and, you know, going to layers, manage projects, and activating a project. Here's my marker. Let's zoom out so that we have some context. Like I said, this has got a lot more features to it than just the simple distance tool, but it does have a simple distance tool. So let's grab that first. Here it's called a ruler. We're going to grab that ruler. And the way it works is you click once, then you click and drag. And you'll see right down, it's telling me right there, 0.29 miles. If I want the distance between that intersection and Hill Street, it's 0.34 miles. And that is the ruler tool. And back out in the main window, if you had grabbed the change the preference to be in meters or metric units, it'd be in meters or kilometers. So that is, again, a fleeting tool. It quickly give me a measurement. It's literally the same thing as on a printed map, grabbing a ruler, taking a measurement between 2 points. It's not meant to be a permanent annotation. That is that. But if you wanted to make a permanent annotation, there's a lot of ways you can do that on the web page. But I'm going to show you the root tool. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to grab the root tool. I went to Tools, Draw Root. And let's say I wanted to get a distance down the street here. So I'm going to click a waypoint, click another waypoint, click another waypoint, etc. Of course, you can choose different map types. I'm going to use switch it here to USGS shaded relief topo, just because that's a little more what everyone's familiar with, as opposed to some of the interactive maps that are available. So there's my route. If over here under project options, look at this, it's already told me it's 0.85 miles. There's the distance between each waypoint, all right there. In English, if I wanted it in metric units, I could switch it right here. We'll keep it in English units. We'll save the project just so we have it. So like I said, this is like taking a Sharpie and drawing out on the map itself. The route tool can also be used to create an area, and then from an area you can get a measurement of that area. So let's try that. I'm going to go to Tools. I'm going to draw the route. And let's suppose I wanted to get an idea of this area right here. So I'm going to go click a route point, waypoint, waypoint, waypoint. Put that down here. But instead of trying to connect the line up here where it says loop end to end, I'm going to choose that. And now I have an area. We're going to end that route so it's done. And now we will look at Route 2. And Route 2 not only tells you its distance between each waypoint and around the perimeter, but it's 0.23 square miles. Or so many square meters. Can you get it in Acreage? I could already hear somebody asking that. No, not on the website. So we've got our little route. There it is. Let's see. We also can use the track tool on the website. let's use that. The track tool has a lot of different modes. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to choose draw track freehand. And again, let's draw a track along the street here. I'm going to click once, then I click and I take that back. I'm going to delete that track. Let's try that again. Draw track point to point. Click. And I'm going to click again, click again, click again, click again along that route. I've made a track. Okay. And then over here, there's the distance along that track. Again, we'll save and continue. If I wanted to do an area for a track, it's the exact same thing as for a route. We'll draw track point to point. Let's do it around here. Boop, 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 boop. Loop the track and the track. Check the track over here. And track 2 is 0.08 square miles. These annotations, routes, tracks, markers, okay. We've already done a marker, which was our intersection up over there. Or excuse me, up here over here. These are permanent annotations. Like I say, it's like taking a magic marker or Sharpie to your map. And so they've been drawn on the map. And those are the measuring tools and capabilities of the website. I'm just going to go ahead and save the project right now. And I'm going to open it up for questions. And let's see, is elevation considered, or how can this be done to get exact distance? No, all of these tools on the website and on the mobile app do not accommodate for ground distance changes. They are as the crow flies measurements. There is a feature on the TNP desktop, which we'll cover in a minute, that allows that does take that into account given the elevation model that's built into TNP. But that's a good question, and I'll show you that on how to do it on the TNP desktop. What is the difference between a track and a route? That's kind of a fundamental question, but in that it's one of these which came first, the chicken or the egg sort of things. The main difference is, I like to think of it as this: a track is where you've been, and a route is where you want to go. Typically, tracks are recorded with GPS units, or let's say the TNP mobile app. It's like a breadcrumb of where you've been. And a route is usually a series of waypoints that you want to navigate along. In other words, I'm planning out this trip. I want to go from point A to point B to point C. And that is how we would typically use a route. Now, there's nothing stopping you from doing one with the other. They're basically, as far as Terrain Navigator Pro is concerned, lines. One has dots between them and one doesn't. Fundamentally, if you think of tracks as kind of places you've been or places you've recorded, and then routes being where you want to go, that's usually how I designate between the two of them. And Mary, if that doesn't answer your question fully, feel free to chime in with a follow-up. Paige asked, when do people use the web access versus the desktop? Again, the desktop is going to have the most features. That's going to be, it's got 20 some odd years of development behind it. So it's got a long, rich history of features and improvements and suggestions. And, hey, Ed, could you make it do this? And, all that sort of stuff is all in the desktop. So it's going to be by far the most flexible and advanced offering. However, it might not be with you at the time. You might be at home or at the office or whatever, and you might need to access your project on the website. And obviously, on the smartphone, you want to have a quick way to get at your data, or you want to collect data while you're out in the field. That's where the smartphone really kicks in. So that's why we have those three different ways of getting at your project data. But the desktop is by far the most powerful way of accessing it. All right. So and then I'm just going to say, if there are any other questions with the website. All right, if something comes up, feel free to chime in. I am going to move on. I'm going to exit out of the web and go back to my project screen. Oh, here's an interesting feature is that you can get some profiles on the website. So that those tracks or routes that I created, some very basic profile information. And also the main project screen itself has all the sort of basic information. Square miles. Okay, so this route 2 was the one that we made that had that was looped. So it's got the area all there. So you can go get all this information on this home page, if you will, without having to go and activate the project. Steve asks, back of the phone app, can you record your current locations to make a track today? Yes, 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 yes. That's all covered in other webinars with how to use the mobile app. So check our YouTube channel, or if you really would like, give us a call. We'll happy to give you a basic instruction on that. But yes, that's what the mobile app is best designed for. It's really designed for being out in the field. Here we'll just to make that clear. Here we are. And if I wanted to be recording a track, I just click right here, track on. Well, I'll turn it on, track on. And now it's recording a track. Now I'm not in Montpelier, Vermont. If I click this button right here, it's going to take you to where I am, which looks like it's in the middle of the woods. But if you were on a different map type, we'll go to layers. We'll go, let's say, streets. Done. And now everyone knows where I am. Great. So that's how that all works. Does the phone app run off the satellite or phone signal? Yes. The answer is yes. It works on both. The way that phones work for getting position, there's a system called position services or location services that's provided by the operating system on a telephone, and that doesn't matter if it's Android or iPhone. They both work the same way. Basically, it works like this: if it uses whatever facilities that are built into the phone or attached to the phone, maybe by a Bluetooth receiver, to present location information to all of the apps on the phone. So, it could be as raw as using a triangulation off of cell phone towers to as exact as using a high-end, let's say a high-end Trimble GNSS receiver can be used with a smartphone and get sub-meter accuracy. So it all depends on what's attached to the phone. But most phones have a GPS built into them. In fact, I can't think of a phone that doesn't have a GPS built into it. So with no other questions, let's move on to the desktop. We will go right here. So here we are on the desktop. I'm in the same project. And notice as we've been going along, it's made that marker, it's made that route, it's made these tracks, made that route there. It's all been synchronized nicely on the project that's on the desktop. Terrain Navigator Pro, like I say, the desktop is gonna have the most features to it, and as such, the most preferences. There's a shortcut to all your preferences right here, or you can go to File, Preferences, and they're all listed out. Two that I'm going to call out. The first one I'm going to call out is coordinates. Coordinates of where you would set your primary and alternate coordinate display. That's what's displayed up here on the toolbar. So however you want, whatever you want for declination, true north or magnetic north, and that's going to come into play in a minute. And how you want your bearings displayed, again, that all comes into play on the desktop because the desktop's got all these features. And then also under preferences, we can choose units. You can choose your length, your elevation, and your area. Okay. And notice that there's a primary and an alternate distance. elevation and area measurement. Again, so that allows you, once you do your measurements, you can have them displayed in two different formats. So if you're constantly switching between square miles and square and acres, you could do that. And so let's just do that. So let's say it here, suppose that, and I normally also deal with acreage. And there's a bazillion different formats for measurements. Everything, chains, my personal favorite, smoots, yards, veras, and all the different formats. It's all in Terrain Navigator Pro for your measuring pleasure. But we're going to stick with feet. Terrain Navigator Pro Desktop also has a fleeting distance tool, just like the other two formats. There's two modes to it. There's a straight line mode and a curved line mode. Let's just check this straight line mode first. Let's measure this road right here. Just a general measurement from the town line. I've just clicked. I'm dragging. Notice down at the bottom of my screen, I'm just going to move my cursor over there so you see where what I'm looking at. I'll put it back over here. It's telling me the segment length as I'm drawing it, and the bearing, and any change of elevation and grade. I can continue to add points along that road to increase the length of the distance measurement. If I want the total distance, right click, choose information, and there it is all laid out right there, the projected distance. There's no area. We'll get into area calculations in a minute. Again, these distances are all done with as the crow flies, and we'll talk about ground measurements in a minute. I'm going to clear the distance tool. It's right here. I'm going to hit that. Boom. The curved line distance tool is, as you would imagine, for, let's suppose I wanted to actually do this on a curve. I'm going to click once, click once. Now I'm going to click and drag around the curve and click once to finish it off. And now I've got a more reflective of what that road is doing. The tooltip is set up to give me the distance in feet. If I hover over it, I'll just show you that real quick. If I go to preferences, geotips is what they're called. If they're over distance, you can program your tooltips or geotips to have all kinds of different information, and by default it's set to distance, but you could have it programmed to do all kinds of lovely things. Let's see. Again, this is a fleeting tool, so when Terrain Navigator Pro shuts down, it's not going to be there. But the markers, routes, tracks, those continue to stay. The distance tool is not synchronized between the three different platforms. Let's see. I wanted to show you profiling and line of sight. So let's do something interesting here. Let's get, suppose I wanted to construct a hiking trail or something along this path. So I'm going to clear the distance tool. Shortcut to clearing the distance tool is this delete button right here on the desktop. Hit that, boom. All right, let's grab the distance tool, and let's say I'm going to make a hiking trail from up this way and up, then cross it over to the top of this hill. Now I want to know what the profile of that looks like. I can right click and choose profile, and there it is as it's going up the hill. If I wanted to know what the grade was at a particular spot, I can see right here it's 15%. Well, where is that? I'll click that right there. Click right that, and right there the red circle has indicated that's where it's the 15% grade. This also shows you not only the total distance, but the ground distance. So this is where it figures in adding in any variant based on the conditions of the ground, the change in elevation, using the elevation model that Terrain Navigator Pro has built into it, which is rather coarse. This is not going to replace surveying, but it's it's also very good for good enough measurements and basic layout, that sort of stuff. You can also use it for line of sight. And a line of sight is just to say, can I see the beginning point from the ending point? So I'm going to right-click on the distance tool again, and I'm going to choose line of sight instead. Notice it draws a blue line here to indicate that it's showing the line of sight along that path. And the upshot is, can you see that spot from the top of that hill? No, because that hill's in the way. But suppose you were wanted to make a tower at the top of the hill. Could you see the bottom, the start of the trail from the top of the trail if you put up a tower? Well, let's do that. Let's add an offset at the end. And let's say we put up, I don't know, 200-foot tower. You put up a 200-foot tower, and you could certainly see the beginning from the end. And that is how you use the line of sight to do tower measurements, how you can do, again, approximations. These are not going to replace all-out surveys, but give you a general idea, hey, is something going to be seeable from one spot to the other? And if you got really fancy, yes, it will also accommodate the Earth curvature. Over a small distance, of course, it's not going to matter. I'm going to stop at this point before I go any further, because there's a lot I've just covered in the distance tool in Terrain Navigator Pro. So I will open it up for questions regarding the distance tool. And let's see, we've got how would I make sure a true north-south grid on a map to plot the timber cruise? Okay. The first part of your question is well beyond the scope of this webinar, Dennis. The short answer is there is not a grid tool in Terrain Navigator Pro at this time. There is one in development. That's all I can really say. That would do exactly what you're looking for. But the only way you could really do it is to make a route and then enter the coordinates and copy and paste. It'd be a mess. So that's that. The grades don't seem to be accurate for steep slopes greater than 50%. Any suggestions? I can't say that I would necessarily agree with the premise. Let's do a profile right here. And that's pretty steep grade there. If you look at the contour lines, it seems to agree with the contour lines. But it will, well, okay, here's a real steep grade right there. So let's do that one. Let's clear out the distance tool. Let's go from the bottom of this ravine to the top of this thing. So there's a different distance there of at least 100 feet in climbing. What's the contour elevation? Contour on this map, the contour interval is 20 feet. So every contour line is 20 feet. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, so there's a difference of at least 100 feet there. And let's do a profile of that over, again, so it's over a distance of 350 feet, the grade 45. Yeah, so yeah, that's a pretty darn good grade there. So that seems to work. Remember, we are computing grade, not that's that. All right. Any other questions about the distance tool? I will just also add that you can, if you make a distance over thing and you want to save it, you can right click on it, convert to, and it will let you convert it to all different wonderful things, including, let's say, a track. And we'll just call this, track 324 works for me. So now it's taken that distance tool, cleared it out, and saved it as a track. Let me go back to my notes here. So that covers the distance tool. Now I'm going to show you some of the annotation tools that can be used for measurements. Now we've already covered routes and tracks on the website, and those are basic tools that everyone I suspect is familiar with. So I'm not going to reiterate them here, but here's the route tool and, of course, the track tool. But here's a tool that a lot of people miss, and that's the range bearing line tool, or RBL tool. And that's for entering by range and bearing. Now you can click and drag and make a range and bearing. Notice down at the bottom again, it's telling me the range and bearing as I'm drawing it. And it's using the preferences that I've set up. But I could also right click on that, choose Edit RBL. And let's say I wanted to definitely make it exactly 0.75 miles and exactly 45 degrees true north. And it's updated it accordingly. Of course, I can also change color and all the other fun display properties. It also gives me a shortcut right here if I wanted to do the measurement in feet or kilometers or whatever's. Let's update that to 4,000 feet. You can set it by range and bearing or time, speed, and bearing. In other words, if I was traveling at so many hours at such and such miles per hour, how far would I go? We had a lot of people use Terrain Navigator Pro for search and rescue, and somebody used this to figure out how a boat was going across the lake and at what point it would have collided with another boat or something. It was something of that nature, where they were basically doing the trajectory of an object. So that's fun. Or you could do it for anything, a car or a train, or the train leaves Boston at 2 p.m. and etc. So that's that. And fun thing that you can do with the distance with the range bearing tool. Let's do something fun. Let's suppose I am going to make a marker here, and that's going to be my starting point. Marker 613. Great. I'm going to go to Layers, Range Bearing Lines, and suppose I wanted to know where it's going. If I was to travel due north from that marker, where would I intersect the other range bearing? So I'm going to make a new range bearing line, and we'll call this intersection. Instead of starting at the center of the screen, I'm going to say I want to start it at marker 613. And let's say I just want it to go 0 degrees, so it's going due true north. Well, let's go 2 miles. And hit OK. And it has made a range bearing line that goes 2 miles due north. Let's make it only 1 mile because that looks too long. There we go. Great. Now I want to know the intersection of those 2 points, those 2 range bearing lines. Not only with the information tool, which I'm going to grab right up here. Here's my information tool. Can I get the range bearing information for one range bearing line? It's all right there. Or the other range bearing line. I could get the information on the intersection, and you'll see that it's changing to an intersection, and it has given me the range between the 2 of them. and the latitude and longitude of that intersection. So the range bearing tool is kind of a cool, fun tool for making just that, lines and based on range bearing or distance bearing. You can hook it up to your GPS even and have all kinds of fun if you wanted to determine how fast you're, based on your current position, where is, what's off to the 90 degrees or something to that effect. Let's say range bearing lines is done. Do we have any questions of how would the this line of sight work in a depression? Let's see. I'm gonna make sure. I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but I'll take a stab at it. The line of sight is going to well, let's go back to the distance tool. And suppose we wanted to, this river's in a valley. I could click once, click again, and then get the information, do line of sight. And again, it's going to compute the distance, it's going to show you the top versus the other across the valley. It would still work if I was within the valley. The elevation model in Terrain Navigator Pro does accommodate negative elevations. If you're asking about New Orleans or Death Valley, it will work and does work properly in that area. So it does handle those cases. Jimmy, I'm not sure I quite got your question, so if you want to clarify, feel free to. Meanwhile, I'm going to move on to the next tool. And the next tool I wanted to show for measuring is the range ring tool. And that was covered extensively last webinar by Michelle. And we're going to just quickly remind people that you can grab the range ring tool. And suppose I wanted to see what was within this building here, let's say within some distance of that building, or I'll just say that building right there. And I've just moved it, and I'm going to right click, edit the range ring. And I say I want to make sure that I've got a project, and I got to let everybody know within 1 mile of my building that I'm doing a project. And there's my information. So you can do range rings, you can have multiple rings, you can do all kinds of get all that information. It does tell you the acreage and square mileage of the circle. So if you wanted to, if you were doing crop circle or irrigation, and you needed to figure out the area for an irrigation system, you could do that with the range ring tool. Yeah, with one click. And again, just like before, there are preferences for everything. Neat side trick, and I just hit it, is that when you are in a particular tool, like I have the range ring tool up, if I hit the preferences shortcut button, it's going to bring me right to the preferences for range rings. So I can set it so that it would have whatever properties make sense for me. And other than please see the last month's webinar for more details on range rings. I'll take questions on range rings. Good. I'm glad I was able to get that answer to you, Jimmy. Next, we will cover again area measurements. So we're going to go back to the distance tool for a moment. Again, the range ring, range bearing line, those annotations are permanent. They are stored in the project that exists on the desktop. Okay, markers, routes, and tracks. You can't make them on the. You can make markers, routes, and tracks on the phone, so they can be displayed on the phone. You can't use a range ring on the mobile app, so they won't be displayed on the mobile app either. Okay, so back to the distance tool, the fleeting distance tool. Suppose I wanted to make a quick area computation. Let's do right over here. I'm going to go boom. Oh, first I'm going to clear out my distance tool. Hit the delete button. Boom. boom, boom, boom. Here's one thing that's different. To connect it to the end, just click nearby. Now, if I right-click and choose information, it's giving me the area in acreage or square miles or whatever you've set your preferences to. And I can clear it out. If I wanted to do a profile along that distance, along that boundary, I could right-click and choose a profile, and it's going to give me the profile along the boundary. And you'll see that the beginning point, that's that red circle, the small red circle, not the range ring, and that endpoint are the same because it makes a loop. And here's in the middle in that valley. And I'm just clicking along the path to show me where that particular spot is. And just so people, just to reinforce, a line of sight cannot be computed on a closed area, okay? Because the beginning point and the end point are the same point. So yes, you should be able to see yourself unless it's dark out. Also, while let's clear that out. Another way you can clear the distance tool is right-click and choose clear. Let's do another area. Again, notice down at the bottom, it's doing the segment length and bearing as I'm doing that. So all that stuff can be displayed as you're doing it. If I hit the delete, it's gone. If I close out, it's gone. If I wanted to keep it for some reason, I could right-click on it and convert to, let's say, track. And we'll make a track out of it. And there it is, saved as a track. And now that track will be displayed on the mobile and the website and so forth. That all said about the distance tool. Probably the coolest way to measure area in Terrain Navigator Pro, and by far the most flexible, is the Polygon tool. That's up here, looks like a polygon. Grab that Polygon tool, and let's start drawing a polygon. And I'm just clicking and dragging, or just clicking actually. And there, I've made it. I want to make it go around that road, so I'm going to add another vertex. I want to move that one. Let's move it, and let's put it right where those things intersect. So I want to move that one. And now I've got a really nice polygon for area. If I right-click on it, I'll finish polygon first of all. Right-click on it and choose information. It gives me the perimeter. It gives me the area. All that fun stuff. If I wanted to make a hole, don't count the area in the middle. I can do that. Now, we've covered the Polygon tool a lot in previous webinars, so I refer you to that. But I do want to call your attention to one really cool feature, and that is if I edit the polygon, I can label the polygon with the area. And I'm going to set the background color to be white so it's a little easier to see. And there it is in Acreage. If I need to edit the polygon for some reason, I want to know what the changed acreage is. Suppose I need to take out that subdivision. Or suppose you had a parcel that you needed to subdivide and you needed to carve off a 1 acre section or 2 acre section to satisfy some zoning requirement or whatever. You can use this in exactly that way so that you could start cutting up a polygon and say, if I move that just a little bit over there, what if I moved it over there? Well, suppose if we kept this road here or whatever, then it's going to update in real time and you can make those sorts of computations. Again, I was doing that for a project that I was involved with not too long ago. So that's the Polygon tool in a very, very brief nutshell. Again, I ask people to check the other webinars that are available. Polygons are not synchronized to the website because the Polygon tool is not available on the website or the mobile app. So if you want to see a polygon on those platforms, right-click on it, polygon, create, and you can choose either a root or track. Let's choose a track. And there it is. It's made a track, actually 2 tracks because of the hole. And that is the Polygon tool and what would synchronize between the projects. Again, the basic tool, the basic distance tool is a fleeting tool, does not get saved, does not get synchronized. Markers, roots, tracks, they get synchronized. Polygons, range bearing lines, and range rings do not get synchronized. And that covers everything I was hoping to cover in this webinar. I'll take questions on the Polygon tool. And what else? Chip is asking, please demonstrate add, part, and cut. Okay. Briefly with the Polygon tool, let's, I'm just going to clean up to a different area of the map so that I'm dealing with something fresh. And let's make a new polygon. I'm going to grab the Polygon tool. And I'm going to go and let's make an area. Okay, so there's my basic polygon. Now, add part is I want to take a polygon and make, I want it to be one object, but 2 distinct polygons. Imagine you had a field that was bisected by a road, or maybe a piece of property that's bisected by a right-of-way of some sort. So you want to keep it as one entity, but you want, as far as computations and so forth, but you have this line in the middle of it. So that's what add part is for. So I'm going to hit add part, and suppose I had a property that was to the north of this road here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a part to the polygon along the northern boundary here. Okay. Finish. So if I were to right-click on this polygon and edit it, you'll see that it is both parts. We'll call it split polygon. Split property. And let's just give it a funky color just so we can see that when we're done. I've made it blue with the lines. It's one object, 2 parts. When I get the information on that polygon, it will ask me, do I want it on the whole polygon or just that part? So there's the information on the whole polygon, or just that particular part. If I label that polygon automatically, I'm going to edit that polygon. I am going to choose a label. I can choose area, part, and total, or just the part or just the total. Let's choose part and total. And again, I'm going to set the background color to white so that we can see it. So again, it's labeled as area, part, / total. So this area, this southern part is 350 acres. The entire polygon is 400 acres. The northern part, the northern part of the polygon is 50 acres. And again, the entire polygon is 4.92 acres. And again, this is all live. So if I go and I move this around, it's going to update the whole thing. You also asked about cutting. I'm going to hit holes briefly, just again, for the sake of completeness. A hole is I've got a property and I've got a lake in the middle of it. So I don't want to count that lake. So I'm going to add a hole right here. So again, it's carved out that section. I'm going to finish it. And all the computations and displays now reflect the fact that there's a hole or lake right there. Cutting a polygon is for taking an existing polygon and you want to cut it into two parts. Very common for timber use. If you had a stand and you wanted to cut it into stands, excuse me, a cruise and you want to cut it into multiple stands. We want to do cut polygon. I'm going to click outside, outside, inside, inside, outside, and now it has made it into two parts. So we've now got three different polygons now because we've cut it all up. Here's one polygon, here's the other one, and now the part got split off. And that is how to cut between polygons. I saw something flash by real quick on my screen here, and Chip, you're welcome. Okay, so thank you. What does in okay, Dennis? Let me hit boom, 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 boom. Hit some quote. Let's go back to Robert. I note on your toolbar to the right of the polygon tool looks like a tree. My toolbar. Shh. Yes, that's the new Timber Cruise module for Terrain Navigator Pro that you didn't see. Now, it's no secret that we're working on a Timber module. I alluded to it earlier in the presentation. It is not yet available for the general public. So sorry, that's what that is. How do I turn off the background color of the polygon? Okay, right click, edit polygon. And right here under fill area, you've got all your various options. You can choose different patterns, including a background of transparent. And now it's completely transparent. You can also do, suppose you wanted it, a 50% blue or something like that. It makes a nice, shaded thing. So you've got all kinds of options here for how you want the, you want it, with dots and different colors and, different levels of transparencies. And you can make something look really nice, or you can make something look really ugly, depending on how you play with those controls. So that's how you can adjust the transparency of the polygon and the various fill patterns. Let's see, add hole. I covered add hole. What does invalid topology mean? Good question. Again, let's just kind of go to a new spot on the map. So I'm starting from scratch. If you started with a polygon, and let's make a very simple polygon here. And let's edit the polygon, and we'll put on the labeling just because that's cool. I'm also going to label the range along the side, so in case people weren't aware that you could do that. So not only now does it show the acreage in the middle, but it's showing you the distances between each of the vertices. You can go in, you can continue to edit this, right? It's making the edit. What invalid topology means in a nutshell is this. I'm going to take this waypoint, this vertice, and I'm going to do this. Not only does it look ugly, it's ugly math. You'll notice all of the waypoint, all the vertices have turned red. If I were to try to get information on it, you would get invalid topology. You've created a polygon that crosses over itself somehow if you're getting invalid topology. So how do you fix invalid topology? You have to figure out where it crosses over itself and not make it do that anymore. Or suppose we had that, I could just simply right click on this and say, with the Polygon tool, right click, delete that particular vertex. Boom. And now it's valid. So that's invalid topology. Any other questions about TNP's measuring tools or questions on TNP in general? We are now over an hour, and I'd be happy to stick around if anyone has any particular questions. But I think that covers everything I had to do with measuring in Terrain Navigator Pro.
Thank you, Ed. And I typed it into the chat session, but we will post this on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com and just type in Terrain Navigator, you'll come up with our channel. We also keep everything updated on our Facebook page, so we'll post it there as well. And if you need a certificate, we're happy to provide you one. Just send an email, tnpsupport@trimble.com. And Jimmy, of course, we're happy to help you anytime, setting up your orienteering course, anything you need, we're always available. Give us a call, send us an email. We will always respond quickly, and we appreciate all of you for showing up today. And thank you, Ed, for doing a great job.
You're welcome. Thank you, Paige. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks for your support. And everyone, just be safe. We're in weird times. Just hope everyone is well. And thanks for supporting Terrain Navigator Pro.
Thanks all.